It's been bothering you a long time?
Yeah.
Affecting you, everything?
Yeah. I mean, it's stuff you can't even tell a therapist. You know? It's like...
Hello everyone, I'm Kevin and welcome to Just Thought Lounge. This is the true crime channel that delivers well-balanced, serious coverage of the cases that really make you think. Our case today has been a big one in the media. Tara Grinstead was 30 years old in October 2005 when she went missing in Ocilla, Georgia. The circumstances were suspicious, so 5 years later, still with no sign of her, Tara was legally declared dead. Efforts to piece together what had happened and to bring her killer to justice continued relentlessly for over 16 years. Local and state investigators received and tracked down thousands of tips. So many, in fact, that those with the potential to break the case open went unaddressed for years. But there were people in Ocilla and elsewhere that knew something, and not everyone would stay silent. This is the story of the disappearance of Tara Grinstead, also known as the Beauty Queen murder. Let's take a look. "30-year-old Tara Grinstead was more than a beauty queen. She grew up with her older sister Anita in Hawkinsville, Georgia, competing in beauty pageants that offered opportunities for scholarships to further her education. She won Miss Tifton in 1999 at the age of 25 and used the winnings to pay her way through Middle Georgia College and Valdosta State University. After receiving her master's degree, Tara began working as a history teacher at Irwin County High School in Ocilla, Georgia. The last time anyone saw Tara was the night of Saturday, October 22, 2005, at a barbecue held at her friend Troy Davis's home. She had spent the day at her friend Dana's with a household full of girls, helping young contestants prepare for the sweet potato pageant. After attending the pageant, Tara made her way to the barbecue. At 11 p.m. that evening, Troy walked Tara to her car. The next day, Tara's mother Faye tried to reach her on the phone at home a few times with no answer. But it was on Monday morning, when the 11th grade teacher failed to show up for work, that her colleagues at the Irwin County High School raised the alarm. Tara was a dedicated and responsible teacher. Her unexplained absence was worrying. The Ocilla police were called to check on Tara's house. When law enforcement arrived at the house, they found Tara's car in the drive and the door to her home was locked. At first glance, it appeared that Tara could have simply left the house willingly in another vehicle. But further searching of the property suggested that foul play may have occurred. Police found her car seat in a position for someone taller, and they say they found an envelope with $100 in cash on the dashboard. There were more oddities. Her cell phone was still connected to a charger by the nightstand, but her keys and purse were missing. Tara's bedside clock was on the floor and was 6 hours off. It appeared to have fallen on the floor and was broken. Some beads were scattered across the floor, one of her bedposts was damaged, and her bedroom lampshade was askew. There was a small stain on her comforter, perhaps blood, but not much. However, no other evidence was found to suggest what exactly had happened to her. There was a 34-hour gap between when someone last saw Tara and when officers performed the welfare check on Monday morning. The clothes that Tara was wearing 2 nights earlier when last seen were found in her home along with her car, so all signs suggested that she had made it home on that Saturday night. But most worrying was a single latex glove that was spotted discarded on the front yard, about 15 feet from her front door. The single item, more than any other, led investigators to suspect foul play. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation, the GBI, were called out to the house that morning. Tara was registered as missing, and the investigation was formally launched. Tara's relationships were scrutinized in the early days of the investigation. Of particular interest were past romantic partners who may have turned possessive or violent. She was linked to at least 3 different men in the 6 months leading up to her disappearance. The first person police looked into was Tara's ex-boyfriend, Army Ranger Marcus Harper. Marcus and Tara had a tumultuous 6-year relationship. During that time, both had dated other people, but family and close friends say that Tara remained in love with Marcus. The two had split only 2 weeks prior to Tara's disappearance. Marcus claimed this was due to his unwillingness to commit. Tara wanted marriage, he said, but Marcus had no interest in settling down just yet in a small town. Only a week before, Marcus reported Tara showing up at his home and banging on his windows, apparently threatening suicide if he should start dating anyone else and begging him to take her back. Family and friends of Tara's immediately dismissed these claims. Authorities had also ruled out suicide in her disappearance since they did not have a body. Marcus spoke with police, he offered DNA, he offered a credible and verifiable alibi. Marcus was never declared a suspect by police, but he did spend years under the suspicious eyes of the local community. Another romantic partner, Anthony Vickers, who was a former student of Tara's, had been arrested in March of that year after causing a disturbance at her house. Just like Marcus, however, he was cleared by investigators. A final and perhaps obvious suspect was the man whose name appeared on the business card wedged into Tara's door. Neighbors said this man frequently visited Tara's home. The man, Heath Dykes, was a married police captain from a nearby town. Almost 24 messages from Heath were found on Tara's answering machine after she went missing. He also drove out to her home on the Sunday night to check on her.
Sunday, 2:27 p.m. Hey, I'm like, they can come see you, and I'm like, you call. They call, let me know what's up. Sunday, 2:46 p.m. Hey, trying to figure out what I need to do this afternoon. Give me spaces, give me a call. It's about 2:45. Sunday, 3:15 p.m. There, pick up. So why I hadn't heard from you today, but you can just stop it and so. Give me a call when you can. Later. Sunday, 7:34 p.m. Take care, please do this call. Trying to get word about you now. Okay, just let me know you're all right. If you're there. Not like you, not tomorrow all day.
While investigators from the GBI went down all the obvious paths of inquiry and eliminated potential suspects, the Ocilla community mobilized to launch a massive missing persons campaign and entice anyone with information to come forward.
Because I was with her Saturday, and it's so weird because I walked her out to her car and then I haven't seen her since.
While the community searched, they gossiped. 2 weeks after her disappearance, rumors started to spread among Irwin County students that Tara might have been murdered. 2 former students of the school, Bo Dukes and Ryan Duke, 2 best friends with similar names but who were not related, had allegedly bragged to friends at a party that they had killed the teacher. A high school friend of theirs later recalled the 2 discussing the murder. "We killed and burned her body," was the statement he heard amongst laughter, apparently. The 2, Bo and Ryan, were reportedly just joking around. The friend had a poor reputation with law enforcement and chose not to go to the police after the party, instead telling others that he trusted what he had heard. In 2008, with no solid leads, the GBI released information on their key piece of evidence, the latex glove found in Tara's front yard. The glove had immediately been sent for testing when it was discovered. The lab recovered a male profile DNA, but even after this evidence was paired with all possible suspects, there was no match. 100 people were tested, and the GBI even tried to match the DNA nationally. Over 3 years, no matches were returned. Authorities called on the public to come forward with any tips. 5 years on, in 2010, Tara Grinstead was officially declared as deceased. Law enforcement had received hundreds, perhaps thousands of tips, arguably so many that the sheer volume was more of a detriment than a help to the investigation. Certain tips were slipping through the cracks, and no one was following up. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation and local law enforcement were emphatic that the Grinstead case has never gone cold. GBI officials said that they had continued to receive and follow up on tips in the teacher's disappearance and murder. In 2011, the Irwin County Sheriff said he received credible information telling him to search near a bridge on Reedy Creek. The creek sits about 6.5 miles from Ocilla in Irwin County. The sheriff said a dive team and deputies searched for more than 4 hours and found nothing. In 2015, law enforcement got another tip that led them to a pond in Ben Hill County, which is about a 25-minute drive north of Ocilla. They used a sonar device and a submarine to search the bottom of the pond. A dive team from Georgia State Patrol confirmed there were items located on the bottom. The GBI then obtained a warrant to allow them to drain the pond to look for further evidence. No remains were found. There were items retrieved that were thought to be connected to the case, but they were not publicly disclosed. 2 more years would pass before there was any additional movement in the case. In early 2017, Brooke Sheridan was in a serious long-term relationship with a man she described as both kind and highly intelligent. Brooke had met Bo Dukes on the dating app Tinder, and after a month of messaging back and forth, they met in person and hit it off. In the years since graduating from Irwin County High, Bo had enlisted in the U.S. Army. He was deployed to Iraq in 2009 and Afghanistan in 2012, and was even awarded a number of medals for his service, including the Bronze Star, which is awarded for a heroic deed performed in armed combat. Bo came from a prominent Ocilla family that owned a large pecan farm in Fitzgerald, just outside of Ocilla. He was married for a time, then divorced, and moved in with Brooke to a private apartment in the family home with his mother. The couple was, by all accounts, quite happy. That is until the day, in January 2017, that Bo came home and told Brooke that he had been interviewed by the GBI and that they were taking swabs of several people, including him, for the Grinstead case. After this, Brooke recounted how Bo started having panic and anxiety attacks, which worsened over time. During one of these episodes, Bo opened up to Brooke about what he said was the truth regarding Tara's disappearance. He told his girlfriend that there was a party at his trailer in Fitzgerald that Saturday night in October 2005. He said he drank, passed out, and his friend Ryan Duke woke him up the next morning. According to Bo, Ryan confessed that he had broken into Tara's home using a credit card to open the door. Bo claimed that Ryan told him he got into bed with the high school teacher and strangled her to death. He came to Bo later and asked for help disposing of Tara's body. Bo had agreed to help. Brooke felt sick and confused. Then she contacted the GBI with the information. Both Bo Dukes and Ryan Duke were names held in Tara's case file since 2005. A tip about the two bragging about the murder had been recorded in 2008, but not followed up on. There were also the repeated attempts made by an Army friend of Bo, John McCullough, to speak with the GBI about what he knew. John had said that Bo admitted to him that he had helped dispose of Tara's body on his uncle's pecan farm, and the admission had shocked and disgusted his friend. John had reached out to the police as early as 2007 about what his friend Bo had told him and left his contact information, but despite contacting the agency another 9 to 10 times beginning in 2007, John did not hear back from the GBI until 2016. It was this contact that prompted the GBI interview with Bo, leading to his anxiety attacks and confession to his girlfriend. Bo was eventually convinced to come clean. Not in his first 2016 interview when he denied everything, but in 2017 after Brooke had spoken with investigators. In a recorded confession, he described what had happened the weekend Tara went missing.
Ryan was there, a few people came over, we were drinking, and I passed out, went to sleep, woke up the next morning, or actually somewhere early afternoon or something. Ryan woke me up and said that he told me that he had, this was the next Sunday, told me that he had killed Tara Grinstead. I thought he was, I didn't believe him, I thought he was out of his mind. I told him, take me home, let me go to sleep. The next day, I think it was the next day, his brother, who also lived with us, came home and told me that she was missing. And I told him what Ryan told me that the day before. And he asked me to come with him out to the pecan orchard. And I went with him. And we drove back into the back. And he showed me where her body was. And freaked out, kind of. I asked him what the hell had happened. He told me that he had gone to her house that night, used a credit card to get him through the front door lock, and strangled her into bed. And then brought her body to the orchard. And he asked me to help him week. So there was a shelter out there that was full of firewood, split wood and fat lighter. And we used that in my truck and moved her body to wood area. There was a bunch of wood and we burned it.
Bo told Agent Shodel of the GBI that Ryan told him he'd used Bo's white Ford F-150 to move Tara to the pecan orchard. He had also stopped at a laundromat dumpster to throw away her keys on the way. Ryan had used Bo's truck and chosen Bo's family land to burn the body, so it's on you, his friend had told him. Bo said he then traveled to the pecan orchard with Ryan, where Ryan showed him Tara's unclothed and discolored body. Shortly after the interview with Bo, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation announced then 33-year-old Ryan Duke had been arrested for the murder of Tara Grinstead over a decade after she had gone missing. Unlike his friend, Bo, who was a decorated veteran, Ryan had been discharged from the U.S. Army after going AWOL. In 2005, he was struggling with drug and alcohol abuse issues. The Bureau described him at the time as someone who never came up on their radar. A little over a month after his arrest, an Irwin County grand jury indicted Ryan Duke on 6 charges. 1 count of malice murder, 2 counts of felony murder, aggravated assault, burglary, and concealing the death of another. Shortly after Ryan Duke was arrested, he offered what was characterized as a spontaneous confession to the murder. The GBI proclaimed it was a rapid 90 seconds before Ryan admitted to them that he had killed Tara and burnt her body in the Duke's family orchard. He admitted to a sequence of events that are similar to those told by Bo, but there are inconsistencies between the accounts. For example, Bo described Tara as unclothed, but in Ryan's account, Tara is wearing a t-shirt and jogging pants. And did Ryan strike Tara, or was it strangulation, or both? The details from Ryan were less clear.
So you go to her house, do you remember what the house looked like? Color?
Well, definitely. Beige, maybe.
Was there any cars there?
I think so. Not 100%.
Okay. And you obviously did park like right in front of the house, I'm assuming, right?
I don't know. I mean, it just. What led me there is, I don't know. I do not know. I broke in with a credit card. Turned the lock, it was locked. But like I said, you can pop it real easy with a card. I learned that when I locked myself out several times. So I went in the house and so I seen a purse. And next thing I know, she said something and grabbed me on the shoulder and I hit her. And like I said, I think I left. And like I said, went home and came back and called, and everything was okay, but it wasn't.
Let's go back over. You said you called him. I know you said it was, but
Yes.
you said that this was his daylight when he came back?
It was getting the daylight, yes, sir, it was early in the morning.
So you said you went to, what kind of phone did you
This
use?
is a payphone.
Do you know which store it was?
The TG now is, I can't remember what it was at the time.
How did you call the house? What did you do?
I dialed 411 to get the number, so I didn't know what, and there wasn't an answer.
You were hoping that she would answer the phone.
Yes.
When she did, you knew something was wrong.
Yes, sir.
Ryan told investigators he was looking for drug money when he broke into a random house and tried to steal Tara's purse and keys. When she caught him in the act, he punched her, which led to her death. Ryan also offered to guide GBI agents to the area in the pecan orchard where he and Bo had taken Tara's body.
none of this clear enough for, because we didn't walk 10, 15 foot to the truck to where we cremated her.
So it was pretty much right off that road?
Yes, sir, but exactly where, I'm not sure.
That's fine.
I mean...
That's fine. All we can get you to do is... but out here is where it happened?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's the same road, but finding the exact spot's going to be...
A few days later, following the arrest of Ryan Duke, more than 50 GBI agents started searching the Hudson Pecan Company pecan orchard in Fitzgerald, less than 10 miles north of Ocilla, for Tara's remains. A Judicial Circuit Superior Court judge issued a gag order at this time, preventing law enforcement or any agencies involved in the case from speaking about it to the media. But that didn't stop local and national news outlets from monitoring the search efforts closely, hoping to deduce if any discoveries had been made. The GBI searched the farm for 4 days. Anthropologists were called out to assist. At the time, officials refused to say if any remains had been recovered, but it was revealed years later that human bone fragments had been found in the orchard. But they had been burnt too severely to provide a DNA match. Bo Dukes was facing up to 25 years in prison for his part in the murder of Tara Grinstead and for lying about it to GBI agents in his first 2016 interview, the one that spurred his worsening anxiety attacks. In September 2017, a grand jury filed 4 new charges against him, including 2 counts of making false statements, 1 count of hindering apprehension of a criminal, and 1 count of concealing the death of another. Bo opted to go to trial to fight the charges, hoping to receive less than the maximum 25-year sentence. He was released on bond while awaiting trial, however, this was revoked when Bo failed to keep up on community service work and restitution payments. It came to light that around 6 years prior, Bo had pled guilty to stealing more than $150,000 from the United States Army. As a unit supply specialist in the Army, he had ordered televisions, cameras, power tools, copper wires, and other property, which he was able to fraudulently bill to the Army through the General Services Administration. He then had these items shipped to his home, where he and his then wife Emily pawned the items for profit. In 2013, Bo served 27 months in federal prison for this scheme, followed by 3 years of supervised release, and had to repay more than $134,000 to the federal government for the crime. He was released from prison in October 2015. That was not the full extent of Bo's criminal activities, however. In January 2019, Bo Dukes was on the loose after he allegedly sexually assaulted 2 women at gunpoint. He had been living in a house in a suburban family neighborhood in Bonaire. One neighbor who lived next door to his house told local reporters that on New Year's Day 2019, 2 women wearing only towels ran up to his door and began knocking incessantly. He let them in and they asked to use his phone to call police. While on the phone, he heard them saying that a woman had come home to the residence where they were being held and then helped them to escape. Security camera footage showed 2 women wearing towels escaping Bo Dukes' home. The incident led to a 4-day manhunt for Bo Dukes, involving multiple law enforcement agencies from across the broader area. He eventually turned up at the home of a family member, which was being watched by the Irwin County and Ocilla police departments. He was apprehended there without incident. The district attorney held a press conference to deliver the news in coordination with all of the agencies involved, much to the relief of the local communities who had been left on edge after news of his alleged kidnappings and sexual assaults had been made public. Bo was taken into custody and, finally, later that year, went to trial for the charges related to Tara Grinstead's murder. The jury heard from the tipsters, ex-girlfriend Brooke Sheridan and ex-best friend John McCullough, both of whom took the stand for the prosecution. John broke down while testifying. He spoke about his friendship with Bo that had started when they were both in basic training for the Army. They had become very close, and John had spent a Christmas with Bo and his family in Ocilla. It was over this holiday break, surrounded by the missing person flyers with Tara's striking face posted all over town, that Bo had confessed to John about what he had done.
Well, it was, pretty late at night, and, he had been drinking, and I had mentioned something about seeing a billboard, and it had a really, really pretty lady that was on it. And I was like, man, that's crazy. You know, what's going on with that? You know, and that was, like I said, the previous conversation we had. But he had brought it up and said, do you remember that billboard that you had seen? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I know what happened. And then I was like kind of shocked with that and was like, what? Technically killed Tara to him.
The friend had said that.
Yes, that he had beat her and accidentally strangled her and killed her, and he didn't know what to do. So he needed his truck to be able to move her body.
The high school friend that overheard Bo and Ryan joking about murdering Tara back in 2005 also testified. In Bo's own confession, he admitted to telling at least half a dozen individuals over the years what he claimed happened with Tara's body, including his ex-wife and a cousin. For the first time publicly, it was revealed that Tara's remains in the form of bone fragments had been located by investigators in the course of their multi-day search of the Pecan farm in Fitzgerald. The forensic biologist who tested the DNA from the latex glove testified that 2 profiles were identified. The first was Tara Grinstead, and the second was Ryan Duke. Bo Duke's DNA was not found on the glove.
From the inner portion, I obtained a DNA profile that was of 2 individuals, and from the outer, I obtained a DNA profile that was from 3 individuals. There was a partial profile from the inside of the glove. It matched Miss Grinstead, and approximately 1 in 900 individuals would also have that profile. The inner piece of glove, the primary profile matched the DNA profile of Ryan Alexander Duke. Frequency of finding this profile randomly in the general population would be 1 in 300 quadrillion individuals.
With regard to those 2 individuals, were you able to make a determination as to Mr. Bo Duke's?
It did not match Mr. Bo Duke's.
The basis of Bo Duke's defense appears to have been that most, if not all, of Bo's admissions to friends and family members had taken place while he was intoxicated. He eventually told the GBI every conversation that he remembered having, but could not recall telling his friend John McCullough anything.
McCullough tried to suggest to you on the stand that while they were at basic during those 4 weeks before Exodus, that Dukes made comments to him about how hot a fire has to be to burn a body, or that pecan wood burns really hot. McCullough relayed to him that whatever comments were made by Dukes were made when they were on Exodus here in Ocilla. There were no statements made back when they were at basic. At least, McCullough didn't tell that to the GBI on the 2 occasions he talked to them. You think he would tell them that. He told you he'd been calling law enforcement for years. No record of it, but he'd been calling law enforcement for years, wanting to get his story out. Why would he withhold those details?
This last plea by the defense team to discredit the witness testimony came after a 4-day trial that brought forth 21 witnesses, multiple recordings of GBI interviews, and the pictures of human bone fragments and GBI searches in the pecan orchard. It took the jury less than an hour to convict Bo Dukes on all counts. Bo spoke at his sentencing hearing, apologizing to Tara Grinstead's family and others.
I'm thankful for this opportunity to address the court. To the Tara Grinstead family, I'm truly sorry. Your long suffering has been unimaginable. My actions are cowardly, callous, and cruel. I was more interested in self-pity and self-preservation than doing the right thing for Tara and for you. I pray for your forgiveness.
This could have all ended, you know, in June of 2016. You had the opportunity then, when you were asked about this, to
Whether you remembered your conversation with John McCullough or not, you certainly remembered burning the body. I don't take any pleasure out of sentencing anyone, but, you know, that's a part of my job.
Bo was sentenced to the maximum term on each of the charges. 5 years apiece for making false statements, 5 years for hindering apprehension, and 10 years for concealing the death of another. These terms are consecutive, totaling the maximum 25-year sentence. The murder trial of Tara's accused killer, Ryan Duke, suffered with years of delays. After his public defenders filed 26 new motions in his case, he hired a new team of lawyers out of Atlanta, Ashley and John Merchant. They took on his case pro bono and filed more motions. The motions included things like a request to prohibit Ryan from being seen in jail clothing or shackles, disqualifying jurors who knew Tara Grinstead, and dismissing the indictment altogether. As the trial date approached in May 2022, rumors had already emerged that Ryan Duke would be recanting his confession. He planned to argue that Bo Dukes was the killer, that it was he that had slept through the night and had been awoken by his friend the next morning and told by Bo that he had killed Tara the night before. His defense team aimed to poke holes in the prosecution's timeline of the crime, claiming that multiple witnesses did not see the latex glove on Tara's front yard on the Sunday, that there is no evidence that it was on the property on the day that the murder was alleged to have happened.
Dykes was having an affair with Grinstead. He testified he called her over a dozen times when she went missing and even drove from Perry to Ocilla that Sunday night to try to check on her. He says he did not see the glove in the yard then.
Are you still of the opinion that you would have noticed the glove if it had been there?
I really wasn't at that point in time looking around for items or looking at that point. I was just trying to get her to the door to make sure she was okay.
They argued that Bo Dukes' DNA was also on the glove, something that contradicts what experts presented in Bo Dukes' trial 3 years earlier, and crucially, they attempted to explain what compelled Ryan to falsely confess to the murder in the first place.
And nobody knows what happened. Nobody knows what happened this day. They are going to present, we anticipate, a theory based on a statement that Ryan made to a GBI agent. The evidence is going to show that Ryan admitted that he had taken a narcotic, pain medicine, prior to that statement. The evidence is going to show that he was under the effects of this pain medicine. You'll see it. The state showed you a photo. You'll see it. This glove that didn't appear until Monday morning. The state cannot get Bo Dukes' DNA off of that glove. You will hear evidence that they tried. You will hear evidence that they talked with the GBI and tried to make deviations, and you'll hear all about it, but tried very hard to change standards to get Bo Dukes' DNA off of that glove. At best, it was inconclusive. What does inconclusive mean? You'll hear it means a weak match. It means they cannot get his DNA off of that glove.
Further doubts were cast on the state's theory of the crime, which was based upon Ryan's own confession when the alleged crime scene was scrutinized. Defense counsel pointed to the throw pillows found on Tara's bed. If she was asleep when Ryan broke into her home, why are the decorative, non-functional pillows still on her bed? They pointed out jewelry sitting in plain sight on top of her chest of drawers. If this was a bungled burglary, as Ryan had said, why leave valuables at the scene? And finally, Ryan claimed to have struck a fatal blow with a single punch inside of the bedroom, but only very small light stains of blood were identified on her comforter, stains they say that are more likely to be caused by something completely unrelated. GBI experts in Ryan's trial testified to a third DNA profile that could not be identified. The defense argued that the third DNA profile is likely that of Bo Dukes. DNA tests from the unidentified profile and Bo Dukes' came back inconclusive from the state crime lab. However, numerous other males that were DNA swabbed during the investigation were excluded as suspects after being tested against the same sample. They couldn't definitively say it was Bo's DNA, but they also couldn't say it wasn't. Ryan Duke took to the stand in his own defense. He recanted the confession given to GBI agents in 2017. He said he was scared of friend Bo Dukes and under the influence of painkillers.
Mr. Duke, did you murder Tara Grinstead?
I did not.
Did you break into her home on October 22nd or 23rd, 2005?
No, sir, I did not.
Have you ever been inside her home at any point in your life?
No, sir, I haven't.
Did you ever strike Miss Grinstead?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you ever choke Miss Grinstead?
No, sir, I've never choked anyone.
Did you ever take a pair of gloves or a glove to Miss Grinstead's home?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you see Miss Grinstead's body after she died?
I did.
Where did you see it?
In the pecan orchard.
Did somebody take you to the body?
They did.
Who took you to the body?
Bo Dukes.
Did Bo Dukes tell you that he killed Tara Grinstead?
He did.
Do you know how Miss Grinstead died?
I do not.
Were you asked to help dispose of her body?
I was.
Who asked you to do that?
Bo Dukes.
Ryan Duke said Bo Dukes had a wallet with Tara's driver's license. He recognized her from Irwin County High School, where he was a student and she was teaching at the time. Ryan Duke testified he drove from Fitzgerald to Ocilla in an unsuccessful attempt to return Tara's wallet, leaving Bo back in the trailer. He also said he still didn't believe Bo had killed the teacher at that time. Ryan made the decision to attempt to return Tara's purse to her despite not knowing where she lived. He said he then traveled to Ocilla and stopped and used a payphone to call her home by using 411 information service around 9:30 a.m. That telephone call was considered to be a key piece of evidence for the state. They considered Ryan's reference to the phone call placed to her home via 411 during his 2017 confession to be what they called guilty knowledge, or information that only someone involved in the crime or having direct knowledge of the crime would know. The state claimed that Ryan made the call prior to returning to Tara's home to retrieve her deceased body to transport it to the orchard. The prosecution brought in an expert to argue that the confession was credible, and that no coercion was at work in acquiring the story from Ryan.
Because of the first minute and 30, there is no reason for an assumption anymore. Which again is why I told you that is so important, because without any techniques, without any tactics, without any mistake, we have the foundation of the admission, and from that point on, it's just a matter of understanding the details and then being able to corroborate those details.
When Bo Dukes took the stand, he was accompanied by his lawyer. Questioned by Ryan's attorney, Ashley Merchant, Bo wouldn't even disclose his name, how he got to court, or respond to being shown an exhibit. He invoked his Fifth Amendment right not to incriminate himself until the judge deemed the exercise a waste of time and excused him.
Will you state your name for the record?
On the advice of counsel, I'll be invoking my Fifth Amendment right not to provide testimony.
How'd you get here today?
On the advice of counsel, I'll be invoking my Fifth Amendment right not to provide testimony.
Mr. Duke, do you intend to invoke your Fifth Amendment right to every question?
I do, Your Honor.
Any reason to continue this?
No, Judge.
8 days of testimony concluded on a Thursday afternoon. The jury reached its verdict before noon the next day.
The State of Georgia versus Ryan Alexander Duke, with the jury finding the defendant count 1, malice murder, not guilty. Count 2, felony murder, not guilty. Count 3, felony murder, not guilty. Count 4, aggravated assault, not guilty. Count 5, burglary, not guilty. Count 6, concealing death of another, guilty.
On the 23rd of May 2022, Ryan Duke was sentenced for the single charge in which he was convicted, concealing the death of Tara Grinstead. He was given the maximum sentence of 10 years. After over 16 years of investigation, trials, witnesses, and confessions, the details of what happened to Tara Grinstead are still uncertain. Alternative theories have posited that both Dukes were involved in an attack on Tara that night, and that perhaps the motive was not a simple burglary. Others believe that the state was confused and placed the murder charges on the wrong man, and had the indictments been in reverse, perhaps justice would have been served. That was the story of Tara Grinstead and the convictions of Bo Dukes and Ryan Duke, although neither for the actual murder. Let me know what you think. I'm Kevin, this is Just Thought Lounge, and I'll see you in the next one.